Hey there. Hi there. I'm Brianna Bowling. I am the founder of Retreat and Learn. And today I am so excited because we have Danielle Dardashti, who is the founder of Dash Branded Content. And she works with companies and individuals to tell impactful stories. She is an Emmy Award winning documentary producer and writer. She has 3 published books, not just 1 or 2, and formerly was an on air television reporter. She is the founder of Story Boom, where she produces where she did produce live storytelling events. She hosts workshops and individual coaching. And I got to tell you, watch out for her because she is super high energy and an absolute blast to talk with. So I'm so excited to have her with. And definitely stay tuned to the end because we have an exciting announcement with a really nice discount that is only going to be shared a few select places. So definitely stay tuned to the end. If you are live with us now, please say hi. We'd love to know who's here. And as we talk today, please post your questions in the comments so they can be answered live. And of course, follow us on Facebook and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. And of course, you can always go to retreatandlearn.com. So I am really super excited to bring in Danielle. So, hey, Danielle.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to have you. We talked a couple of weeks ago just about this and whether we could do this interview and what we were going to talk about. And I don't know how long we talked, but we talked a long time and it just kept going on and on because we have so much to discuss.
I know. I am looking forward to the day that we can actually sit in person at your Retreat and Learn site and talk about all this in person. That'll be great. But it's nice to meet you virtually again today. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have everybody here today. You know, I mean, it's we have a number of people I know who are going to be asking some questions, so I will read those questions to you when they come up. So definitely please ask questions while we are live. And we actually had a question sent beforehand too, somebody who couldn't be here for the live event. So we have all kinds. We may be here longer than a half hour. Who knows?
Awesome.
But the first one is that I think this is a pretty important topic in terms of, you know, storytelling to me is so important. But I'm not sure why everybody understands why storytelling and telling a good story really matters. So could you kind of just start with that?
Yeah, well, okay. So for me, storytelling is sort of my coping mechanism. I consider storytelling sort of like a cure-all. It's the best way to sell a product, to make a friend, to achieve peace on earth, basically. I know that's saying a lot. But storytelling connects people because it's a way for us all to make sense of everything that's happening around us and create a narrative around it and talk about emotion and conflict and transformations. And everybody is experiencing similar emotions, similar conflicts, even if they're dealing with life in a different context. Stories put things in the context of being able to relate to other people's experiences versus just facts and figures and data. Storytelling kind of makes sense of the data.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, everybody has some commonality with somebody. But one of the things that I always hear is that, you know, my story's not interesting. You know, that I'm just boring me. You know, I just go to work every day and I come home every day. I don't actually have a story. And I know you have an answer to that one. So,
yeah, well, you know, it's interesting. Storytelling, a big part of it is story finding. And really, there are 3 steps to telling a great story. The first 2 don't even have anything to do with telling the story. The first step is really understanding who your audience is. The second step has to do with that mining your life experiences to unearth those great stories, because stories are all around us. Sometimes we don't even notice them. And it's really a matter of doing some exercises that I do with people, with individuals and groups to help unearth those stories, doing mind mapping and coming up with ideas in a variety of different categories. It's interesting. Some people have a harder time with the finding the stories than actually writing it once they have the idea. So it's interesting for me as I work with groups to see the differences in individuals with where they get hung up. around finding and listening for those stories versus actually bringing them to life. Each stage is as important as the other.
So that's the most difficult part. I mean, you had mentioned some mind mapping. Is it mind mapping or mind mapping?
Mind mapping. Yeah. So
MIND. Okay.
So there are two steps. I mean, and I don't always take every group through both steps of unearthing great stories, because I have some groups that are just, they can't seem to narrow it down as far as what stories to tell. But it's an interesting thing. I'm actually going to pull out this activity that I do with a group, so I can actually give you a sense of. But the first step with getting the story out is creating choices for yourself. It's and if you've done, I know you work in you've worked in corporate settings, so I don't know if you've been in like these brainstorming activities where they talk about diverge and converge, creating choices, creating lots of choices and just brainstorming and throwing ideas out, and then converging and really narrowing down those choices and making decisions of what stories to tell. I take people through an activity like that in the early on stages of workshopping stories, because it's helpful sometimes. What we do is I give them a list of topic areas, family, friends, lovers, where you grew up, health, aging, fitness, jobs, education, sports and hobbies, vacations, to really get their mind going as far as like, what are some things that have happened to them in their lives in these various categories. And then we talk about, in those various areas, moments of transformation. What was a time that something changed for them in those areas? As far as family, did they go through a loss? Did they go through the birth of a child later in life? Changes, transformations.
Okay.
Generally, storytelling hinges on those transformations, and really coming up with a lot of options for yourself, and then narrowing it down to the ones that really, really will resonate with the audience that you're looking to talk to. And it depends on what you're using the story for. Sometimes people come to me and it's for a business setting. They're looking to do a talk to their team, to inspire the team that they manage. Or other times it's somebody who's doing more of a public speaking engagement, a TED Talk type thing, and they want to incorporate storytelling in their speaking engagement. And so it depends on the setting and who they're talking to, what story they're going to end up selecting to use as that. And some people pick, a few stories, a signature story, and then a few other options depending on the circumstances of where they're going to be speaking. But really starting again with that audience, really figuring out, what is it that I'm trying to do with this talk?
Right. Okay.
And then narrowing down the stories that they have to tell and figuring out which one is appropriate for that setting. It's kind of like putting on an outfit. You have a lot of things in your closet. You have a lot of different outfits that you can wear. It's not putting on a costume and figuring out how to disguise yourself, but it's picking out the right outfit for the right occasion. If you're going to a wedding or you're going to a barbecue, you're going to pick out different things to put on. It's the same way with stories. And so sometimes if it's a person who's doing a lot of speaking, it's about creating a bit of a wardrobe for them with their stories, so that they can select the right story for the right occasion when they need it, and they have it right there.
All right. So I have 8 million questions, and we're getting questions from the side. So this is great.
Oh, okay.
Based off of that. So you talked about finding the purpose of that audience. Which comes first? And this is kind of like a chicken or egg. Do you find the purpose, like the point, the compelling thing that you're trying to teach them at first, and then find the story that matches that? Or do you have kind of like a list of stories, and then you can use it different ways for different ways of persuasion?
Well, so if it's if we're starting at the beginning and the
Okay.
audience and the person that I'm working with doesn't have a wardrobe of stories already
Okay.
at their disposal, I start with the audience. I start with, what do you need this story for?
Mm,
Where are you going? What are you doing? Are you speaking? Are you going to a Moth storytelling competition? Or is this a business setting? Are you are you trying to tell a story to a family member, or are you trying to tell it to the team that you manage at work? So depending on, I start with the audience first.
okay.
No matter what, whether we're talking about a brand that I'm working with or an individual for storytelling, it's always audience first. Now, if you already have a collection of stories at your disposal, at that point, yes, you're looking at, okay, what stories do I have for this audience? But if you're starting from scratch, audience first.
Audience first. Okay. So, but assuming that you have, like, let's say you have three stories that you kind of use, I'm assuming multiple ways, you can kind of pull that out from your wardrobe. That's kind of what I'm getting. And then kind of maybe put on a different accessory so that it can be used multiple ways.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Or if you have a story that you've told a lot and there's a worldwide pandemic going on,
Sure.
for instance, perhaps you don't tell the story in exactly the same way that you usually do, because some things seem kind of inconsequential based on the context of the environment. So there may be a different way that you might tell that story. I love what you just said about accessorizing. That's a perfect way to explain it, because yeah, you may have a whole lot of stories that you use for all different occasions, but the context may have changed. And so you change up a little something in that story. But again, if you're starting from scratch and you're looking to create your signature story, I like to talk about who is the audience that you need that story for. That's where we
Okay.
start.
Okay. And then now moving into, like, once you have the idea, you know what you're going to talk about, you know the topic, you know which piece of the wardrobe you're pulling out. What makes a compelling story? I mean, you can tell a story. Lots of people are great at telling stories. They can tell the exact same thing, but someone telling it very compelling keeps the engagement of that audience. What are those things that makes them good storytellers?
Okay, so if you're talking about, and let me just clarify, are you asking me also a spoken story versus a written story?
I think spoken. I think at this point, yes.
Because for a spoken story, I would say transformation and emotion are the two most important characteristics and elements that keep the attention of the audience throughout. And what I mean by that is, as you're describing, so first of all, let's talk about what transformation means.
Okay.
It means that there's some kind of change that happens in you, the storyteller, from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. There is some kind of change that you're describing. It could be that you just changed your mind about something from the beginning of the story to the end of the story, or it could be that you had a change in job status from the beginning of the story to the end of the story, or you had a baby, or there's so many different ways that we all change and grow during our life. But really, some kind of change or transformation needs to happen to the main character from the beginning to the end of the story. And then when there's an ambulance outside,
I can't hear that.
you can't hear it.
I can hear it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, yeah, sorry about that. And then the other thing, when we're talking about, it's just getting
They're not coming to you, are they?
and then when we're talking about emotion, I have
Live great.
I have a lot of drama always, it's like, yeah. So, and then when we're talking about emotion, it's about describing to your audience how you felt when the story was happening, in order to allow them to feel what you were feeling and experience the story with you.
Mm.
When you're telling a story, the difference between telling a story and like watching a film is when you're watching a film, you see on film all of the different things that are happening to that character. You don't see that when someone is telling a story. All you have are the words that are coming out of their mouth.
Okay.
So those details of emotion, how you felt, and where you were, and what you were wearing, and really describing the scene, painting a picture for that audience is extremely important. And the emotions are really, really key to painting the picture. I was feeling lost. I was feeling abandoned. I was feeling, to really explain how you felt at that moment, really compels the audience to feel along with you. And
I felt scared, or should you? I mean, is there another, like, do you just say I was scared, or is
whatever it was that you felt, I felt scared.
okay?
Yeah. And you can sometimes describe, I felt so scared that the hairs on my arms were standing up, and I felt a pit in my stomach as I sat there in the little room waiting for you. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you're showing the results of that fear. Like, it wasn't just I was scared, but these things occurred because I was afraid. And
how did you feel, not just emotionally, but physically as a result of the way that you were feeling? That emotion and descriptive details of the emotion really allow your audience to understand every step of the way and to feel along with you. And they can't stop listening when they're feeling what you're feeling.
Right. Yeah, I definitely, I write some things. And one of the things they always say is use all your senses. What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you feel? What's the touch? So I imagine the same thing applies.
And it's even more important when it's a spoken story, because if someone loses their train of thought when they're reading a story, they can just go back and read it again.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's a spoken story, if you lose them, they lost that sentence.
Right.
You can't rewind you if you're speaking live.
Right.
They can go back and listen to a tape of it later. But you know what I'm saying? If you're speaking in person, whether it's on a Zoom call or in person in an audience, which hopefully will be back in those kinds of circumstances soon.
Right.
If you lose the audience's attention, that bit of what you said is gone forever.
Right. Okay. I want to make sure, because I asked people to put questions in, so I do want to get to some of these questions.
Sure.
And there's some good ones. One of them was sent to me beforehand, so I'm gonna have to turn to read it. It was, how do I organize the jumble of ideas that float through my brain on those long walks and then disappear when I actually sit down to write? Any suggestions?
Well, okay. On your long walk, whoever you are, who is the person?
It was actually sent in before. I think it was Brenda, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Brenda. I wonder, Brenda, if it's interesting that you have these ideas when you're on a walk. I wonder if you bring your phone or any other kind of device with you on these walks that you could record, even if you can't write down things. If you could just speak aloud and use your voice memo and record yourself just talking freely, just recording everything that's coming into your head as you're walking. And then when you get home, write those things down. I think that everybody kind of is creative in different modes, and it's important to capture those ideas wherever they come about. So if you know that you're super creative when you're on a walk and you're not going to have a pen and paper with you, bring some type of a recording device with you where you could write it down. Or if you have a friend who you're on the walk with, tell it to your friend, because if you tell it out loud to another person, you're more likely to remember it later. So if you're with another person, I would say tell that person the ideas that are coming into your head. And then hopefully one of you will remember later when you get home.
Tell it to a young person. Tell us somebody,
exactly.
20-year-old.
Exactly. Tell somebody who's under 25.
Yes.
But if you don't have another person that's with you on those walks, I would say try to bring, I hope it doesn't ruin the idea of your walk to be phone free. You could put your phone on do not disturb when you're on the walk, but still have your voice memo that you can activate there to record your ideas.
I think that's a great idea. I write, and one of the things, a lot of my ideas for writing comes to me while I'm driving. I know this is terrible, but on my phone, I can put, that little button that just says record. And I'm like, remind me at 10 o'clock to write down that I should write about this. So
yeah, for me, it comes a lot of times when I'm laying in bed, either right before I go to sleep or right when I've woken up in the morning. And so a lot of times I'll keep a notepad next to my bed where I can just jot down some ideas right before I go to sleep or right when I wake up in the morning, because for some odd reason, for me, when I'm lying in bed, I think of these ideas when I don't have my phone with me and when I'm,
at 3 o'clock in the morning too. That's a great time to think.
Right, exactly.
We also have a really good question from Jackie, and I'm going to stick it up here. But Jackie says, sometimes my embarrassment of speaking in front of people shows on my face and I turn bright red. Any pointers? And boy, I love this question, Jackie, because I had the same problem. So thank you very much.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I would say that the best antidote to feeling nervous is practicing to no end and feeling so prepared that you almost go into automatic mode when you're speaking and when you have a speaking engagement where you're not even it comes so automatically because you've rehearsed so much and prepared so thoroughly. To me, preparation is the best antidote for nerves. I don't know if that answered your question, Jackie, but honestly, I tell people practice to the point where you've memorized what you need to say, even if you don't need to memorize it, even if you're going to have your notes with you. Practice to the point where you could speak without notes because you know what you're talking about so thoroughly. The more you're prepared, the more secure you'll feel. And honestly, even if you're not secure, at that moment, you will look so secure because you are so prepared. It's funny, my daughter, when my daughter is 17 years old, but when she was 13, we were in a bar and bat mitzvah class with other kids at our synagogue with our rabbi. And she has a January birthday. So she was one of the very first kids to have her bat mitzvah. And everyone asked in the class, so she had her bat mitzvah, but we still were having this class. And all the kids said, how did you look so calm when you were up there in front of so many people on Saturday? Why were you not nervous? And she said, oh, I was so nervous, but I was prepared.
Right.
And, and everybody, and it just really, it's so true. When you are nervous, if you have practiced to the point where your brain just is in almost like autopilot, you will not look nervous. And some people blush no matter what. But Jackie, you probably look really great when your cheeks get flushed. So it's just more about the way you feel inside than the way you look. Because a little color in your face probably looks great. It's just you want to calm yourself down by being really prepared. So hopefully that helps.
No, that's really awesome advice, because I do think in anything, the more you practice, the better you get. These interviews are a perfect example. When I did the first one, I thought I was going to die before I came in here and put that live button. I was like, all right, if I go to the bathroom one more time before I hit live, this is going to be
And
it.
then you just do it, and you realize, yeah, that the more you practice and the more you do something, the easier it becomes.
It does. Yeah. And it's not that it ever becomes perfect. And I don't think any story should ever be perfect, but certainly more you do it, the better it gets. And so
Yeah.
that's really great advice. So I have one other question too, in terms, we had talked about, like, you asked about whether it was written or whether it was on Zoom or whether it was, on live stage. If you're using the same story, does that change based off of like where you're doing it, and not just the audience, but the actual format of, whether it's live or not live?
A little bit. I've been working with a lot of executives on their speaking on Zoom recently, for good reason, and or over, video calls. And I would say that when you're speaking over video calls, when you're talking about something really personal, you can kind of speak in a quieter, calmer kind of voice than you can sometimes when you're in front of a big audience, because it takes so much energy to fill up a big space.
Okay.
In front of your computer, sometimes you don't need to have the same energy. However, other times, if you're trying to inspire a team and you're not in front of them, but you're speaking to them via camera, I think that sometimes it requires a different energy level that's even higher than normal. So it really depends on what the subject matter is. I do think that that's a great question, that the energy level needed and the tone of voice needed does vary depending on whether you're in person or whether you're over video. It's interesting because my career started, I was a television reporter. And so a lot of what I was doing was talking to thousands of people, but none of them were there in front of me. It was just talking into a camera like you and I are doing right now.
Right.
And I think, so that kind of comes naturally to me, but it doesn't necessarily come naturally to everybody. And I do think that even people who are skilled in public speaking need a little help sometimes with tweaking the way that they speak for video cam.
Okay. All right. No, that's good. I mean, we talked about storytelling, but storytelling really is just about, basically conveying a message. So I know a lot of the questions have a lot to do with the presentation of that story. So I appreciate you going into that area too. So
yeah,
pretty helpful. Any other questions? We're going to have a couple more minutes left. So if you have any other questions, this is your time to ask them. We've had some good questions, and that's been great. I love when there's questions. It helps. And then also, Danielle, you and I have some exciting things to talk about. We have put together a workshop, and Danielle has agreed to do a 5-part series workshop where there's going to be 3 group sessions, but also 2 one-on-one sessions. So she's actually going to sit with you one-on-one for an hour to help craft your story. So I don't know if you want to actually add anything to that, but there's plenty to add. But
yeah, so a lot of people are interested in doing one-on-one coaching, but I love the combination of the one-on-one and the small groups. Because it gives you an opportunity to test out your story in front of a small audience. It may not be the exact same audience that your audience is going to be when you're doing your story, but we sort of role play it and think like that audience that you're describing. And we, as a small group, give you feedback on the story, and then I work with you in between sessions where you are presenting to the small group so that we can fine-tune different parts of the story, get into more descriptive details, add more emotion, and then come back and do the story again in front of the small group, and see how the story has progressed and celebrate each other's progress. So I'm excited to do this 5-part storytelling workshop.
I am too. And I think, Jackie had said she would like to practice. This is a perfect place to do it. And it's going to be in a small group. I think we said we were going to limit it to 12 people. 12 is a perfect number. You can get them great feedback, but not
it is,
overwhelmed.
Anywhere from about 6 to 12 is a great group. I like to have at least 6 so that we have a little audience for everybody. And I like to try to keep it under 12 because then it's still really cozy. So, so anywhere between 6 and 12, I think will be a great group for this. And I'm excited. Maybe some of the people who are watching today will be part of that group.
Oh, I hope so.
Cohort for Retreat and Learn.
It is
storytelling. Yeah.
So one other thing too, before I have a couple more questions that we're going to ask to close up on, but about the workshop, and I'm going to post it in the comments afterwards. But for right now, if you grab your spot between now and June 23rd, there's a $75 discount. But you have to go to, if you go to retreatandlearn.com and then go under events, it's listed right there. And until June 23rd, there's going to be a $75 discount. So we're announcing it here first. We aren't going to announce that discount many places. So, you're lucky you're on the call. So, yeah. But we're so much looking forward to this. This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to do this with you.
It is. It's going to be great. And I also want to give a little shout out to our mutual friend, Gwen Chietta, who introduced us. And because it's really great to know you. And I know that Gwen has done some work with you as well. She and we were colleagues for 10 years working at an educational media company a long time ago. And I'm appreciative to her for making the intro between the two of us.
Gwen's been great. We actually just finished a workshop with Gwen 2 weeks ago, and it was a 5 week, or maybe it was 6 weeks. I think we did it over 6 weeks. Maybe it was 8. I don't know, whatever it was. It was a while, but I actually miss it. I was in the class too. I actually signed up as a participant, and it was so much fun. So I miss our classes.
Yeah, I heard it was fantastic. And I'm looking forward to ours.
Yeah, very good. Well, we have a couple, we only have like a minute or two left, but so to close things up, we did actually have one more question, and it was a really great one. Brenda Richards asked, can you share how your storytelling may help sell reading for students? And that's an interesting question.
Sell reading? Meaning,
I'm not sure I completely understand it. I think what she's asking is that in terms of I assume that Brenda might be a teacher, and she's trying to convince her students that reading is fun. And, it's something that they should spend their time doing. And is there anything in terms of the items and the things that you teach that might help compel students to do more reading?
Well, definitely. I mean, some of the people that work with me are teachers, and they work with me on storytelling, on helping to tell a story without the book there, to get kids excited about telling stories. I do think that there are books that every great book is written with that narrative arc that I talk about, with conflict, transformation, and emotion. And when teachers really develop their skills in their ability, my husband is an English teacher, actually.
Okay.
And so I have an English teacher that lives in my house that works with me on narrative arc with the stories that I tell also, and we help each other. But I think that when teachers are really great storytellers, it by all means inspires kids to read more. I hope that answered the question that Brenda had.
Yeah, no, I think the main thing was just trying to figure out how it is that, why we're doing stories is to try to compel somebody to do something, to persuade them. And so that's a great way to do it. So, she actually clarified. So thank you, Brenda. She just said to read more and be more interested in reading. So just how could you convince them?
And I think sometimes you can tell, like, a long story. There are ways to capture even a chapter book. There are ways to capture it within a 1 minute sort of elevator story of the book. And I think that understanding how to capture that narrative arc in a way that inspires kids to find out more and read that book is definitely, it's almost like selling. Yeah, it's almost like how do you sell a product? You can sell a book in sort of the same way to your students by sharing enough for them to understand why it matters to them, and get them hooked through that story, that narrative arc. I hope that helps, Brenda.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the answer. I mean, and I'm assuming too, if you're trying to put herself personally in there, maybe how that story might have helped her, or maybe how it changed her life. You talk about the transformation. How did it transform her life reading that book?
Yeah, if it did. Or let's say, for instance, you were telling a story. Like, I know a bunch of, I don't know if Brenda's a teacher, but like if you're specific.
It's like she can hear you. She just put this up.
Oh, I'm an educator and now librarian. Oh, yeah.
Oh, Brenda, good job. Thanks for educating everybody.
So, like if there are these, I love all those like preteen sort of misfit type characters in a lot of the books where it's like, I was like that too kind of thing. Sometimes for a librarian or a teacher to be able to tell a personal story, like I could think of a story of something that happened to me when I was 9, when I moved to a new town and I was feeling sort of, sometimes a personal story related. What'd she say? I call it shopping for a book that fits your need to read. Yeah, exactly. So, sometimes there's a book that captures a specific time in life for kids that they can really identify with. And sometimes for an educator or librarian to tell a personal story about something that happened to them when they were that age, and say, this book really got me thinking a lot about when I was 9 years old and I moved to a new town, and, is a way that you inspire them because you allow them to understand, which is really what storytelling is all about. You allow them to understand that you get them.
Right.
You understand the way they feel. Again, really the emotion behind it. And that is how you inspire someone to take action. So whether it's inspiring somebody to read a book or buy a product or go somewhere or do something, it's a matter of really inspiring them and allowing them to understand that you get them and that you understand how they feel. So I hope that helps.
No, I think that's perfect. It's almost like you're inviting them in to walk in your shoes with you. Like, come join me. Come join me in my wardrobe. Going back to the beginning, let's put the same clothes on and walk together.
Totally.
Yeah. I thank you so much.
What the world needs more right now is walking in each other's shoes and understanding each other. And so I think, storytelling is a way to do that. And part of why I started Story Boom in my local town, which hasn't happened in the last 3 months because we haven't gotten together as a community, was I felt like our community needed to get together and tell stories to each other, diverse people telling stories that we can all relate to, and in front of a group of people. And it's just, there's no better way to really connect. Brenda, we're having a whole conversation.
I know. Yay, Brenda.
Brenda, you got to join the storytelling workshop too. Yes. It's all about finding the right fit for a student to inspire them and get them excited about reading, writing. Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. Totally. And so sometimes you can do that through telling your own personal story that they can relate to and that shares emotion, like Brianna and I were saying. So yeah, thank you. All
right. Now I swore we were going to finish right now, but we did get one more question and I can't ignore it. I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep you for a little bit longer. I promise.
Right.
This has been I knew this was going to happen.
Oh, it's great.
So we did have a question. What is your advice to encourage youth to develop the art of storytelling? And so this is, we're trying to develop the art of storytelling for adults, but is it any different for youth?
I would say no. It's a matter of I think bring them to a Moth competition, bring them,
Ooh.
expose them to great storytelling.
Right.
And if you're talking about storytelling, in person storytelling, spoken word storytelling, I think, yeah, expose them to it. There's no better way. I know in our town, some of the teenagers have now started something at our local high school that is a storytelling just for the teens, because some of them went to Moth storytelling competitions with their parents. And
I'm going to interrupt you real quick, Danielle. Probably a lot of people don't know what you and I are familiar with what the Moth is. Probably a lot of people don't know what it is. So explain what that is.
Yeah. So NPR has, a story hour that they do where they have people telling stories in front of an audience. It's 5-minute stories, real life, true stories that people have had happen to them. They get up in front of an audience and tell a story, and it's an art form. Telling a 5-minute story in front of an audience without a script in your hand. And again, preparation is key. Really knowing what your beginning of your story is, what your middle of your story is, what your end of your story is, and how you're going to get there. It's not always perfect, like you said, but it is, where you're going to end up. And you've practiced enough times that you can get there in 5 minutes. So I would say if there isn't a local storytelling there are a lot of them virtually right now.
Right.
A lot of people can access virtual storytelling. If you're interested in that, I can hook you up and tell you where to go and online to see storytelling competitions or to show your students storytelling competitions. But there's a lot of really good ones right now. And
Danielle, could you send me those or post them in the comments afterwards?
Sure.
So I can share them with everybody who's watching today. Because I would like to see that. I love the Moth. I listen to it all the time when I'm driving. It's a podcast too.
Yeah, and
I'd love to know about the other ones.
Well, also depending on what fields people are in. So like within my community of brand storytellers, like companies that are telling stories, there is a great showcase that happens every 2 weeks right now during this shutdown period where we're not doing these in person. And I'm telling a story in one of them on July 30th. And there are a number of those kinds of things that are happening all over the place right now, and everyone can access them from no matter where you live. That's the cool thing.
And participate. That's the other part.
Participate, yes.
And I'm going to tell you one of my dreams. I'm going to lay it out here. Is one of the big things on my bucket list is to one day stand on the Moth stage and tell a story.
Okay, I'm going to work with you on it.
We're going to do it. I've declared it to the world. On my bucket list.
You're gonna take my workshop, this 5-part workshop, and then you're gonna do it soon.
I'm gonna do a Moth. All right.
Summer.
Yeah, you're just toeing in the sand here. We're gonna make it happen.
I absolutely am. Yeah. You and anybody else who wants to do it. You're gonna check it off your bucket list.
That'd be a big bucket list. All right. So now, of course, I'm telling you, you're gonna have to indulge me. Hopefully, you don't have anything coming up real soon because we're getting more questions. So we are going to finish.
Let me see what time my next meeting is. No, my next meeting is at 2:30, so we're good.
All right, we won't go that long, but yeah. We're going to answer these last questions. So I have a hard time getting people to listen when I want to tell a story, so I give up. And then you get a follow up with how do you get adults to shut up and listen? My storytelling skills must be really bad because when I'm at a table with a group and try to tell a story, someone always starts talking and then all of a sudden no one's listening to me. And man, I know Rachel, and Rachel is awesome. She's an awesome person. So she obviously just needs some storytelling tips.
Rachel, I want to apologize on behalf of all of the people like me who always steal the limelight at your dinner parties. So I am very sorry that happens to you. But I'll tell you what you can do. You can prepare. And I hate to keep saying this, but you can prepare with a very, very succinct story that you want to tell, that you are going to have a real zinger of an opening line and a real zinger of a closing line and no one is going to forget it after you tell the
Mm.
story. Not every person that I work with is looking to tell a story at a Moth storytelling competition or during a TED Talk or a speaking engagement. Some people just want to tell a story at a dinner party or tell a story to their kids about something that happened to them when they were a child. So I'd love to work with you, Rachel, and help you tell a zinger of a story and then see what happens.
Well, I mean, I know Rachel. Rachel is like, she's just a kind, radiantly lovely soul. And so she has some great stories. So yeah, she just needs the polish to figure out how to get it out there so that people.
Well, and you don't have to be loud either and boisterous in order to get it out there. You just have to have the right opening line. And I'll help you with that, Rachel.
All right.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yay! I think that's a great advice. The opening line, that's probably the big things we have to work on. So,
Yeah.
All right, I am going to finish up. I so much appreciate your time, Danielle. I mean, this has been
Thank you, Brian.
as expected,
This has been awesome.
fun. We've had a great audience. I love all of you out there, my little audience here.
I know, your people are great. They ask great questions. You got teachers. You've got all kinds of people in your audience. I'm excited.
Yes, it has been great. Yeah, I love it. So, anyways,
Thank you for having me.
It's what? Oh,
Thank you for having me.
It's been fun. It's been a really, really good time. So just to finish up, I just wanted to finish up. So in case you missed the beginning or the middle of things, we are going to be doing a 5-part series workshop with Danielle. If you're interested in it, you just go to retreatandlearn.com and find it under events. And there's a $75 discount if you sign up between now and June 23rd. So that's not advertised everywhere. So go find it. So that's pretty much it. Anything you want to add before we close off?
No, it was a pleasure chatting with you today. So much fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. We may have to do it again. Well, after the workshop. So good things. All right. Well, thank you everybody very much. And as usual, I mean, if you liked what you heard today, please subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Facebook or do both. And we have another one, I think next Friday, I think it is my next talk, and it's on palliative care, which is one of my big heart songs. It's something that I care about so much. And so I'm really excited to bring that to people and talk about what palliative care is and what the differences are between that and hospice and how much it can improve people's quality of life. So just so many interesting people I have in my life, and I'm very grateful for every single one of you. So thanks so much. And we will talk soon.